Welcome, everyone, and welcome to Vechi's Voice. Vechi is with Treehouse Recovery, one of our TAM heroes, and Vechi has been instrumental in educating us through the road of addiction, and he's quite candid with us when we just want to know. So, recently we asked you what questions you would have for someone in long term recovery and also who he now works in recovery, and here we are with Vechi tonight. And Vechi has answers for each of us. So, Vechi, once again, thank you for being here with us. And
Of
if
course.
you want to start us off by giving us just a short bio of your recovery for those that may not have heard it before, and then we'll get right to our questions.
Sure. I had let's see here. I got sober on November 24th of 2011. I did not get the opportunity to go to a luxury or a medically managed detox. I went to an indigent place. I started my detox there. It was a very uncomfortable experience, not one I ever want to do again. I moved into housing thereafter, learning the basics um, and how to live life. After that, I started helping out around the house, being a part of the community, and they started putting together a center that approached addiction very differently and successfully, for that matter. And I asked for a job. And now, going from living homeless, literally under a bridge, um, I have a very different life today. I have the ability to help people and spread the word, and it's not an easy road. A lot of these questions are really good. I think it'll bring some clarity. I think there's misconceptions sometimes because it's hard to get into the mind of the person actually going through it. So I'm looking forward to doing this with you guys and hopefully shedding some light on what's going on.
Good deal. We look forward to it. Okay, so one of the things that we think about quite often, Vechi, and this is not going to be new to you, but we often think this out loud and we never really kind of get a straight answer because we don't really know somebody that we can actually ask this of and get a straight answer. And so one of our TAM moms, Lilia, asks, how resourceful were you when you were in active addiction? And so one of the things that means is that, as a mom of a recovering addict or an addict, um, we believe the worst when it comes to someone being homeless or and it's cold
Mhm.
outside or they say they're hungry. And it creates a lot of sadness and tears and just, you know, valid worry. And so we're just curious as to how resourceful were you when it came to your recovery when you were working that, when you were
So
in active addiction. Sorry.
when I was in active addiction, so just to get some clarity on it, how resourceful was I in the ways of making sure I stayed warm or
Yes.
okay. So I was thinking about this recently. Whenever it gets cold or rainy, like I have little shots of absolute gratitude. You learn to memorize the routine of certain places. Um, like when the sprinklers came on in certain areas, when security would check certain areas, there's other people who were also homeless. There's cliques. So you learn to, I resorted to shoplifting at some point. I knew the dollar store was a place that didn't really chase you. You don't really care. It's a buck. So when I was starving or hungry, I could go in there and I knew I could grab, I don't know, crackers or canned soups and not really have to worry about getting in too much trouble. Absolutely wrong. But everything becomes a calculated risk. I would find apartments that had laundromats and I would watch the times. And if the laundromat closed at 10 o'clock, they'd come lock it up. I'd try to be in there when they tried to lock it up. I'd be safe. I'd be warm. Uh, there was access to water. I didn't have to worry about certain things happening. During the time I was homeless, in the area I was homeless, there was a group of teenagers, and they did this in Los Angeles as well, running around, and they would pour lighter fluid on people who were outside sleeping. There was one guy who actually died. He died from his burn injuries, an older guy, and I got terrified of that. To be asleep either under the bridge or behind the party supply place where I was sleeping, and to be dead asleep, and if someone can pour lighter fluid on you, is a horrific thing. I would have nightmares. I'd wake up screaming. Uh, but even with all those difficulties, still didn't stop using. I had a home that I could have stayed in. I had people that would have helped take care of me, but I was choosing to use the drugs in lieu of that. So yeah, it's terrifying. It's horrifically painful, and yet it was not still not enough to make me change at that time. As far as the other things, you click up with these people. You can put together little groups. You know, one person will shoplift something. The person who shoplifts something generally or usually is banned from the store, so they can't return it. So then you get somebody else who's got a clean ID that then can return it, and you become dependent on people. There's like miniature little rings of people. One will steal stuff, the other one will turn stuff. Gift cards. You know, when they stopped giving you, if you don't have a receipt, they started giving you a store credit because it was just easier and it kept your loss prevention costs down. Well, then you'd find drug dealers or connections that would give you 50 cents on the dollar for the card. I remember I thought I'd hit the jackpot when there was a Walmart, it was a super center, it was attached to a gas station. And most of the time, a dealer or a connection would only give you 50 cents on the dollar, as I said a moment ago. Well, for gas cards, you know, I get a dollar for dollar on that because it was, they could actually go fill up and it was a real thing that a tangible commodity that they needed. They needed to drive around and distribute. Learning how to hustle hotel rooms. Sometimes you would walk by, or you got in a real bad spot, you walk by, you see if the cards were turned in. They're not going to turn those rooms over until 10 a.m. So you drop by, grab one of the cards out of the box, and then try it on every room until it worked to get inside. You become very, very, very resourceful. Food. If you get stuck, you're riding the bus all night in the cold or the rain so you can stay warm. And the bus drivers know what's going on. And as long as you mind your business and you're like, you keep to yourself, they'll generally let you do that. Law enforcement, it depends on who you get. You know, sometimes they don't care. You know, they know you're just trying to find a place to sleep. Other times it can be pretty difficult. Anything and everything. You spend time thinking about how you're going to build a lie to tell your mom, your significant other, trying to get a little bit of money, no matter where it was. I mean, as far as cutting out coupons, talking about what you need and why, and then pitching them on the benefits of why you need this whatever it is, and then figuring out who you're going to sell it to for what, and how you're going to get what you need. I remember one time one of the drug dealer's girlfriends had gotten some type of infection and needed antibiotics, but she couldn't get antibiotics. And I was trying to figure out what can I come up with that I could tell my mom, look, I don't want drugs. I just need antibiotics. Just take me to the doctor for these antibiotics. And I was going to take the antibiotics back and trade them to the dealer for drugs. You're as resourceful as you could possibly be. You're driven by a horrific addiction. You will turn over every rock. You'll do anything. I even heard there were some people who would collect cans out of garbage cans
Yeah.
all day, and then they go turn them in. There's people who stand on the corner. I I couldn't panhandle. I was too proud. I know that sounds silly, but to me it just was. And then you resort to whatever you have to do. You know, stealing, doing whatever. You don't. You're not thinking great of yourself. So perpetually you think, well, I'm not a great person anyway. I might as well do what I have to do to stay high. You know, no one else wants anything to do with me. Completely skipping the part that you're the one making the decisions to do this. And just absolutely refusing help. I remember one time I finally got a chance to get into this place that gave you vouchers for like the hotels. So you would be off the street. And what they would do is they stand outside your room to make sure you didn't have people coming in and out. Um, they just, every opportunity you weaponize, even handouts like, oh, you know when they're giving out food for free, you know when they're giving out clothes for free. You learn the inner workings of all of these different things. You become a mastermind of being able to figure out how to stay on the streets and survive, who to be friends with,
Yeah.
who to stay away from, who not to get caught with.
Right.
And you absolutely become a master at these things to stay and survive. Um, as far as danger goes, pretty much everything. Violence, drug dealers. Um, yeah, I, I, I don't lie to our parents ever. All of these things are going on. I don't want you to think like, yeah, no, it's okay. They'll probably be fine, or it's not. It's extremely dangerous, especially if you get caught in the middle of something you had nothing to do with. I
Yeah.
had one time somebody had it was mistaken identity. They thought it was somebody else. Um, Jumped me in the back of a car in a horrible neighborhood, threw me out of the car. I was stumbling. I wasn't completely altogether there, and it was a bad neighborhood. And this guy he was smoking outside of his garage, and he was, hey man, what are you doing here? I told him, I don't know. He goes, your buddies just kicked you out of that car. I said, yeah. And I started hearing people behind me, and it was a local gang that had been there. And they're screaming, they're yelling. One guy had guns in his belt. He's like, what are you doing here? This is not what you're supposed to be. And he stopped him. He goes, what do you want to do? I said, man, I just want to get out of here. And I call a cab. And he looked at the guys who were behind me. He goes, hey, he's with me. I'm sending him home. Go do something else. And it was an older gentleman. They respected what he said. He said, all right. They turned around and he gave me a phone. He said, get the F out of here.
Wow.
And I took that. Yeah. So yeah, it is dangerous. There's no, oh yeah, it's okay. No, it's dangerous. It's horrific. I've also heard people selling their bodies or going to whatever extent they have to get the drugs that they need. A lot of people donate plasma. I didn't do that particularly. A lot of people donate plasma, and a lot of people started doing research studies.
Hmm.
There was a place in Lakewood that would do surveys. And if you came in and you tried some cookies or something and completed their survey, you could make like 25 to $100 for 2 or 3 hours. So that was a really popular one. People would go back and forth and do those all the time. Yeah, you become, survival. You
Yeah,
become as resourceful as a starving or somebody fighting for their life would be, which is what you're doing.
exactly. Okay. All right. So we had two moms ask this same type of question, and it is something that I know that pops into my head a lot too, because we always want to know what made you, what was it? What was that turning point? Was it just one day? What was your aha moment that was the turning point for you to go into recovery?
This question gets asked a lot. Um, and I can tell you when my mind knew something was changing, but there's no like straightforward answer to this. There were many events that led up to a precipice, and that those little events that all stacked up, it led to a huge change. So it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't. I came across this. I was completely destroyed morally, self confidence. I burned all my bridges, and I was still going. My father died when I was out there, and it took him a week to find me because I was running around in the streets. I didn't stop there. Having lost my daughter to Child Protective Services, rightfully so, I didn't stop there. In fact, I would use those to perpetuate it. So there were all these little things that you thought maybe this would be it. And I remember I had just gotten out of jail. I got caught with a good amount of methamphetamine, um, and it was an officer that he had known an ex girlfriend of mine, and I was the guy who kept showing up that she had pity on. And I was walking across the street, and I would run constantly, whether I was on foot or in a car. I would run, and I'm walking across the street, and as I come across the crosswalk, this officer and two other officers are standing there. And they say, "Hey, that's you." Of course, they know me by name. "What's up? What are you doing?" And I looked at him, and I had close to a half ounce of methamphetamine on me. I had a bunch of other drugs on me. I had a bunch of cash on me, and I was with somebody who had a warrant. And normally I would run. I would run. And they knew this. It was Lakewood Sheriff's Department. I put those poor guys through hell. Um, and I was looking at him, and he unhitched his gun. They were ready for me to run. And he goes, "You got anything on you? What are we going to do here?" And I took a deep breath, and I said, "I'm not going to do anything, man. I'm tired." And he kind of looked at me, said, "I got a bunch of dope in my pocket. Here's my hotel room key." He said, "You're not going to run?" I said, "No, I'm tired. I'm not going to run." And I just started putting my stuff out. Um, he was very puzzled. To be honest, I was a little puzzled too, but I had been in jail for a period of time. I'd gotten out for like a week, and then here I was going again, and I was just exhausted. Now, 3 days later, 4 days later, I got released because it was a quick turnaround, and the judge was just he had pity on me. He'd seen me there several times, and I was back out, and I was trying to figure out a way to get back to the Connect. And I think I was going to steal some blankets from Anna's Linens and convince them somehow that, they were $40 blankets. It was close to Christmas or close to holidays. he could get like $10 or so for him, and he was supposed to meet me. And I was sitting out on the street waiting for him because he was supposed to meet me there. And the girl that I was seeing at the time, I was trying to convince her to let me in. She wouldn't let me in. Um, and I was trying to convince her, like, hey, the drugs are coming. Don't worry. And she goes, yeah, I'm not. She goes, listen, if you don't have drugs, I'm not. You can stay out there. And it was cold. And I'm sitting out on the curb and I'm waiting. And here comes a Lakewood Sheriff's Department car. And the guy pulls up and he looks at me. He's like, what are you doing out here? I'm like, I don't know, sitting on a curb. What are you doing? He goes, well, I'm out here because you're sitting on a curb. So I'm like, okay, here we go. And I had nothing on me, Terry, nothing. I had just gotten out, no money, very exhausted. And he goes, well, I'm going to run you. I said, man, I just got out. And we talked for like 30 minutes. And, he pulled away and I just sat there. Like, this is horrific. This is terrible. No one wants anything to do with me. And the next day was Thanksgiving Day. So all of these moments built up. There was no aha. There was just these markers where I didn't want to fight. Like, this is tiring. This is not. I don't see if I could just get there, it'll get better. I didn't see anybody getting better. And then that next day, I walked into McDonald's. It was Thanksgiving Day, and I'm laying sprawled out in the McDonald's by myself. And someone offered to drive me to detox. And to this day, I don't remember saying yes. In fact, I don't think I said yes, but I went. And I remember being in that bed that night, and it was the sheets were scratchy. It was cold. There was a bunch of strangers around, but I had a bed to sleep on, and I felt safe. And that was the first time I'd felt safe in a very, very long time. And I remember going to sleep that night, and I thought to myself, like, something's changing. I don't want to be out there anymore. There's a period of time where there's a fantasy that it's cool. You're a rebel. You're running. You're doing this. You're watching all the movies. You hit 31, it's just not cool anymore. Like, this sucks. And that started to lay in. And the more I started to enjoy my comfort rather than the high, and my peace rather than the high, I had a feeling that I didn't think I could ever quit, but the feeling was starting to grow within me that I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Just got tired of it all.
Yeah.
Understandable. Okay. So, another question. So, how instrumental was the particular rehab in for you in choosing recovery, or was it just you deciding, which is basically what I think you just answered, just to
Yeah.
do life different?
Well, it's a culmination, right? Because you make the decision, you make the first decision, right? Like, okay, well, maybe this is the way I'm living my life is not a good idea. And then there's the subsequent days afterwards where you have to reinforce that decision. Reinforcing that decision by yourself is horrific. And one of the things at Charlie Street is they have you there for 10 days and you immediately start to develop community. And you see people doing well and you're like, wait a minute, hold on, if he can do it, maybe I can do it, right? Like, maybe a little bit, it'll be okay. And then I came into the community that's around in Treehouse, and these guys are all taking care of each other. And listen, it wasn't all rainbows and candy. Like, there were times things, Terry, they sucked. Like, I'm facing consequences. No one's to talk to me. I've got legal stuff going on. Child support's coming after me. Like, things got pretty grim and gray. And it made you want to go, well, F this. I'm going to go back to using.
Yeah.
But then you look at the guy next to you, and he's going through the same thing. And you're going through the same thing, and you know what? It both sucks. But you're not alone, and you're not continuing to cause damage. And when you see a group around you, like, that's the most instrumental thing, is community around you when you're going through it. Another person to say, yeah, you're right. This absolutely does suck and you're going to be fine.
Right.
That was one of the biggest keys to see. I'd always quit when it got hard. Anything got
Right.
too difficult or too challenging, I'd quit every time. Well, there's this other person next to me. He's doing it. That guy's doing it. All these other people are doing it. They're not quitting. They're staying on it. Well, they can do it. Maybe I can't do it tomorrow, but I'm going to hang in for today. So the
Exactly.
community and the culture that you're around, I don't care if you're in a $10 million rehab. I don't care if you're at a place like I went to at Charlie Street. I don't care where you're at. If the community and culture is empowering, compassionate, and strong, your chances for success are 10 times better, because you're going to have to back up that first inclination to stay sober so many times after that. So many, because you're going to question it. And I
Right.
questioned it for a long time. Oh, maybe no. Oh, this. Oh, that. Like, and I had to struggle through all those emotions. But having those people to bounce everything off of, I sat in a meeting and said, hey, this ain't working for me. These are the reasons. I don't think this is for me. And there would be 5 or 6 other people who would raise their hand and go, yeah, going through the same thing. Went through that 6 months ago, still here. Like, wait a minute. So it isn't just me. It isn't impossible. I'm surrounded by examples of what can happen and how. The
Hmm.
culture and community is massive. If you walk into a treatment center and you are isolated and alone and you walk out the same way, they failed. My opinion. They failed.
Right. Absolutely. This question actually kind of goes along with that, Vechi. I think you kind of touched base with it a little bit too. So, in recovery, how long did it take until you felt happy and really strong enough to resist the cravings?
It was about it was about 2 months. It was about 2 months. And there were several interdictions of this throughout my recovery. So, first one was I was walking home. By the way, when you're a drug addict and you're out there, you never find free drugs ever. The minute you get sober, free drugs fall out of the sky. It's the craziest thing. It's like being a smoker and you quit smoking, you find all the packs of cigarettes you have everywhere else. It's very similar. I was walking from Charlie Street to Treehouse, and there's a church where a lot of the homeless would congregate. And as I'm walking by, there was a bag, and it was about an 8 ball, which is half an hour, 3.5 ounces of methamphetamine in a bag on the floor right in front of me. I'm a couple months sober, and I'm looking at this thing just like there's no way. Like I'm looking around, like what's going on? And I looked at it, I put my foot on it, and I ground it down, and I walked away. And that felt so empowering. It's like I pulled a hook out of me. It's like, okay. The dangerous part about that was I thought, well, maybe I can do it again. Well, maybe I could try a little. And that thought does play with you a little bit. And it continues to show up within your life. And it usually, for me, it came along with a very difficult time in my life. Um, and these challenges don't go away. In fact, as you continue to succeed in life, like you do adult stuff, like you have health insurance, that's a huge adult mark for me. You when you if you have health insurance and you have a your credit utilization is under 30, you're winning. You're doing great. Um, so these things would come up, and you think you're doing good, and you have to remind yourself, I'm doing these things well, and I am doing well because I don't do that anymore. Not,
Right.
oh, I'm great now, I can handle this. It's the exact opposite. I was 9 months sober, and I'd had a bunch of things scheduled. I was very busy. I was working out, and I forgot my workout clothes at the house. I missed an appointment. I got another letter from some government agency I owed money to or had some legal stuff to do with. So I'm trying to force the situation, and I'm frustrated, really frustrated. And I go to Ross to buy a pair of shorts. And as I'm looking at this row of like clearance shorts, right, $6 or $7, I see a pair, and I put my hand on the pair of shorts, and I reach in the pocket looking for the sales tag. And inside the pocket is a methamphetamine pipe filled with methamphetamine. I
Wow.
felt immediately what it was, and I started laughing. I took my hand off of it, and I looked up at the sky. I'm like, all right, I get it. It's not that bad. As frustrated as I am right now, it's not that bad. And I walked it over to the security guard. I'm like, hey, man, somebody dropped something in a pocket. You might want to get rid of this. And he put his hand there. He was like, oh, my God. I was following this guy earlier, and he was acting weird. So the guy probably thought he was going to go to jail and dropped it in the pocket. There's
Wow.
so many reminders as you move on about, and there will be, we call them tests sometimes, and maybe they are, how
Mhm.
committed to this are you? And you will have those. The thing I want to mention about happy is a very interesting word. So and the way it's been taught to me is happy is dependent on outside circumstances. Joy comes from within. Happiness comes and goes. It's not a standard thing, and it's based on what's going on the outside. And if I base my happiness on my new girlfriend, my new job, my car, or any of these outside things that can very quickly be taken away. If I have joy and contentment with for the roof over my head and the peace in my heart, I'm never dependent upon those things. The
Right.
world does not care if you're sober. Life out there, they don't care. It's not going to, there's no force field around you. It's not going to shield you from getting a job, losing a job, child support payments, legal fees. It won't shield people dying. It won't, it won't shield you from any of that. In fact, now you got to participate in it. You got to participate in it with a soul being completely raw. You're going to feel all of it. You just spent the last decade or however long you've been using trying not to feel as much as possible.
Yeah.
We don't teach, when it comes to the when it comes to the excuse me one second, when it comes to the happiness part of it. So happiness comes and goes. The deal is building such a skill set that you're able to withstand no matter what's going on. And that's what you got to do. You can't, it said happy or strong enough to resist the cravings. The first day I stayed sober, there was part of me that was strong enough to resist all those intense cravings. But like I said before, there's subsequent challenges, and the stakes are always bigger.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got about three more that we can probably quickly touch on, Vechi.
Okay.
This kind of piggybacks a little bit with that. Did you ever have dreams of using after
I'm
you were
so
in
glad somebody asked
recovery?
this.
And yeah, and how did you deal with it?
Let me see if I can twist this a little bit here. Does that help at all? Or is
A
that
little
kind of
bit,
the
yeah.
same? Okay. So this is and a lot of people new in recovery freak out when this happens. You will have using dreams that are so vivid. I remember I was 3 months sober. I was living in a sober living, and I had a dream so vivid. Terry, I woke up and looked for the drugs. It was ridiculous. I thought I had a dream that I'd relapsed to my sober living, and it scared the crap out of me. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to relapse. My brain is all of that is not true. I have had several using dreams. I'm still sober. I've stayed sober. I think it's the brain wringing out what's left of the addiction. Like it still wants this, it still craves this, and you're like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm just
It's
not.
what you need.
It it's not going to make you relapse. It's not a premonition. I mean, if you can if you can see the future, call me. We'll get some lottery numbers together. But it's not a dictator or any of that. But it's completely fearful because of how vivid the dreams are. I quit smoking when I was 2 years sober, and I had using dreams after I quit smoking, even
Mm.
after I quit substance. So they're totally natural. They're totally normal. No, it doesn't mean you're going to get high. If your son's saying he's having using dreams, tell them to share, son or daughter, tell them to share about them in the meeting and with his community. And every single one of us is going to go, oh, yeah, I have them all the time. Like, don't, it's fine. He'll be okay.
Good, good. Okay. And then at what point, like when you decided you said you didn't really know that you said yes to go to detox, so you
Yeah.
kind of ended up there. But once you ended up working in a recovery program or working your recovery, what was that moment where you fully surrendered? Was it day one? Was it 3 weeks in?
It was three
Were
days
you
after I went to Charlie Street. I'll tell you exactly. It was 3 days after I entered Charlie Street. Methamphetamine is a drug that keeps you awake for a very long period of time, and you don't eat. So after coming in to Charlie Street, I'd eaten some food and I'd slept for a couple days. I'd woken up about 1 o'clock in the morning, finally clear minded after a long time, and I started pacing the halls. They're downstairs, there's a fish tank, and I'm just pacing back and forth. And I'm thinking, who did this to me? Who wronged me? I had skills. I'd been with Long Beach Search and Rescue. I'd done amazing things in school when I was a kid. What was I doing in an indigent detox with all these homeless people and charges? And where's my girlfriend? Where's my house keys? Where's my car keys? Where's my kids? Like what's going on? And I had a moment of clarity that every decision I had made since I started using was bad. You could have handed me a winning lottery ticket on Friday night. By Saturday morning, I would have owed money. Like I just made every bad decision. So if I considered myself like I was a company, right? You have a CEO, you've got investments in this company from time, love, energy from my mom, myself. It should be winning. It should be winning. I should be successful. Things should be great. Why wasn't I? That all the stock was there. I could read. I could write. I was intelligent. Like all these different pieces. Why wasn't I winning? And I came to this, and I'll never forget the feeling. I came to the self-revelation was the guy who'd been making decisions this entire time. The CEO had been trying to kill me for years, and I was letting it. So I wasn't going to kill the company because the company was good, but I'd had to fire the CEO. And I'll never
Great way.
forget it. It was like, okay, so if somebody else, and again, this is after trying things for years, I finally decided that maybe somebody else can show me how to use all these things and these tools and these assets and not destroy it.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. Okay, last question, Veggie, for tonight, but you got to promise you'll come back and answer the rest
Of course,
on another night. Okay, so Kim says, is living in recovery a daily fight? She's heard those words from her own son.
yes. I have to wake up every morning and make a decision to do things the right way. Here's the way I try to explain it to my parents and to those who don't really know addiction. Imagine knowing that all you had to do was take a little pill and everything was beautiful. You weren't in pain anymore. There was no more stress. That's all you had to do. So we walk around going through all the emotions everybody else does, knowing we don't have to suffer for a single instant as long as we can just stay high. It, it's hard. You got to wake up
Yeah.
every single day and make a decision to do it. You can coast maybe for a day or two, maybe even a week or two, but eventually something gets toxic and you're right back where you're at. But every day is a decision. The empowering thing about that is you start to realize your strength when you make that decision every single day. For the first year of my recovery, and certain points thereafter, my head would tell me, "You're going to screw this up. You're gonna waste everybody's time. They're going to see right through you. You're an imposter. You're a BSer. Like they're gonna they're gonna tell you're going to screw this up, Betchy. You're going to let them down." And I started looking at my little day counter, and I'd heard those voices or inclinations or had those thoughts maybe every single day, but my day counter kept changing. So regardless of what my head was telling me, the facts said something different. And over the last, it was like 60 or 90 days, every day it told me I was going to blow it. It's wrong for 90 days. It's lost 100% of the time. And now here I'm at 12 years. And those doubts, those defects, that character crap, it's told me, when I was applying for my first house mortgage, when I raised my hand and said I want a job at Treehouse, when all the little things and steps forward I made that said, you're not going to get it, you're not worth it. And I did it anyway. That's mine. I did that. I own that. No one make me here. Um, no one made me be here. No one took care of it. I make the decision every single day. It's my choice. And there's strength and power in that.
Absolutely. Well, once again, Veggie, we thank you for your time and
Of
we
course,
appreciate you answering our questions. And like I said, we have a few more on our list, so we want you to come back and finish those with us soon.
I sure
Um,
will.
but we appreciate you being here and we thank you so much.
You got it. And I'll have better lighting next time.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care.